Where's Julie? Okay, great. I'll try it one more time. Do I have approval for the minutes?
Yes, I've already raised my
Second.
hand.
Second, Julie? Okay, great. Business arising from the minutes?
None.
None.
Thank you. Okay, we're now down to reports and discussions. Pond study, 5-year review. Alistair, take it away.
All right, so back in 2017, our department partnered with Holland College as well as some of the local watershed groups to do a yearly study of the ponds throughout Charlottetown. Now that 2021, all that data is getting concluded. Some of it has to go through the PEI analytical lab. So we're slowly getting all of that back now. And with that, it's been 5 years of monitoring the ponds throughout Charlottetown. So we're just starting to take a look at some of that data to see if we can determine any trends or any give us any ideas of how the aquatic environment throughout our watersheds has been affected by anything over the past 5-year period. So the data collected in this study includes basic water quality parameters like temperature, pH, metals, nitrates, things like that. They also do some sediment sampling for some of similar parameters. They did some micro samples to see if there's any issues with coliforms or E. coli in the waters, as well as they do some macroinvertebrate samples. So I've prepared kind of 2 different statements just from the short time I've been able to look at it, just to show some different things we're able to show from going through this data. So the first one, I looked at the nitrate levels through the city's ponds, and we found there are higher concentrations of nitrates in Wrights Creek, specifically at the higher up in the watershed, so closer to the airport, and then going down to Andrews Pond, they decrease a bit. And over the 5-year period, it seems that it is constantly a bit higher in that watershed compared to Ellens Creek, but the levels are at a certain level that it's concerning. The second statement I have there is there's different indexes you can make from different parameters to give you an idea of the general health of a pond. So this one here, the HBI, is just an index of water quality, which is calculated by looking at the different, basically, insects they can find in the pond, the number of different species, and just the number. And basically looking at Andrews Pond North, we were interested in that just with all the dredging and the construction work. And we found that in 2019, the pond was unimpaired based on this index. 2020, it was impaired, and then it was possibly impaired rather in 2020, and then 2021 it was impaired. So it'll be interesting to see next year if that changes with some of the activities that were done in the area concluding and with the dredging done. So that's just one of the parameters, and we are looking at some other ones where we can take all of that individual data and just make it into something more succinct. So yeah, that's kind of what we'll be working on over the next couple of months, taking all of these Excel sheets and data over the 5 years, trying to come up with some, if there are trends, and then see if we can make recommendations with that. And it does fit in well with the brook trout conservation and protection plan. That was a 5-year plan that was in 2015, so it was kind of like a living document almost, with some goals and some things we'd like to achieve for the city and the watershed groups. So we can look at that and see just over those 5 years where we've been and where we could go next with some of that. And it's just an update only, so no recommendations at the moment.
Can I just ask a question?
So
what I'm hearing you say, Alistair, is basically you're looking at all data that eventually, if we continue to see a decrease in that pond life, that they'll be able to have some recommendations of what more we can do. I mean, we've invested a lot in that beautiful watershed area, so we just want to ensure that it stays healthy.
Yeah, so that's one index that gives us an idea, and that one is probably pretty heavy. It's only uses the presence of the macroinvertebrates, so all the like critters that would be on the bottom of the pond in the sediment. So with the activities like the dredging they were doing, it's not surprising that it's been impaired, and hopefully it is a pretty, Wrights Creek is a pretty healthy watershed, and they've done a lot of work, so hopefully next year we can see that go back up to unimpaired, and while we do more work looking at the other parameters, we can see if it agrees with that unimpaired score it received through that one. So there's still a bit of work to do. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just listened to Alistair's presentation. Very interesting, Alistair. Alistair, so you looked at Andrews Pond on the north side of St. Peter's Road, and then on the south side, is that Andrews or Wright's Pond?
For the sake of this study, they call that Andrew Pond South.
Okay.
It's just they do sampling in each one, and just to distinguish between them, they give them like the north-south name.
Okay. But did you refer to Wright's Pond? Is that further north of Andrews Pond, or is that again?
When I'm referring to, I guess, Wrights Creek, that's like the larger watershed, so that would include all the streams and ponds
on the north side
in that area. Yeah.
Okay. So Andrew, Alistair, sorry, did you look at Government Pond, which is just west of the Jones Building off Kent Street? Is that part of the study?
Yes,
sample?
So that's been part of the study for the 5 years. Just for the sake of this report, I don't have anything on hand, but I do seem to remember that one having quite a high level of E. coli in 1 year, perhaps, but I can't. It is just being quite a small pond, and there's some influence right from the salt water that's there, so it's
right.
I can't off the top of my head give any.
But that'll be part of this. That'll be part of the study. The study that you're doing on the ponds in Charlottetown. Ellen's Creek. So Ellen's Creek flows from Capitol Drive south to Beach Grove Road. So are you referring to that part of Ellen's Creek as the pond?
Yeah. So in that Ellen's Creek, they've done sampling throughout it. So there's they do it up in Hemerdage Creek. I think 1 year they did Hazards Creek. McNeil's Pond is included.
Okay.
And then there's a couple ponds up by like the Princess Auto and up in that area. So it's pretty widely. If there's like a body of water that we can access, it's basically kind of studied through the monitoring.
So that was my question. So you do have Hazards Creek, McNeil's Pond part of the study group. Okay. Just, Mr. Chair, last question. So the retention ponds that are off Belvedere Avenue near the lab, the pathology lab, there's a retention pond there. And then there's also, I call it Superior Lake. It's the retention pond just near just to the north side of the Arterial Highway, near Superior Sanitation. You're not taking those into the study because they're just retention ponds, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you. Alistair, well, first of all, I want to thank you for reporting the analytics and obviously, the further assessments and review that you're, there's ongoing. I guess you would call it a work in progress. We've spent a considerable amount of time and effort on Andrews Pond. We did dredging. We spent money there. I think we've done it a couple of times. I'm very keen on, and I think I sent an email, would have been a year ago, and you did respond about, a game plan for Ellen's Creek to see if dredging is required there and what work is required there to bring that, watershed up to its potential. So, for example, will you be coming back at a later date with a plan of action to say, here's what we need to do in terms of, the physical work, the physical component that is required to help revitalize these ponds, like Ellen's Creek, and all in through that region, if you will.
Yeah, so in the report that I'm going to try and be working on through the next little while, I was planning on kind of trying to do some breakdown of the different watersheds, so looking at further depth of like Ellen's Creek and Wrights Creek, and trying to see kind of the general health of the ponds for each watershed, and then if they are kind of impaired or there's some parameters that are higher or lower that might be a concern moving forward, I can certainly, to the best of my knowledge and ability, provide recommendations. And then, of course, I can discuss that with Brian with Holland College, and Normand and John Andrew and all the other volunteers at the watershed groups who have certainly more on the ground experience and have been monitoring and more familiar with these watersheds than I am. I guess all I can say is
I'm very keen on Ellen's Creek, and like I said, all in through that particular area, that geographical area. I'd like to bring that up to its potential. So, hopefully you'll come back with a game plan in the not too distant future. I want to come back to Government's Pond. That's something that I've been talking about for the last couple of years. I would love to see Government's Pond. People talk about Government's Pond, what it was like a number of decades ago. People used to be able to get down there skating. I would love to see that pond revitalized with fish, so that kids in the city that don't have transportation, don't have the opportunity to go fishing with their dad or their mom or their friends, can walk to that pond and actually have the opportunity to go fishing. So is that a possibility? I'd like to see that pond go back from a traditional sense. Can we not revitalize that pond and do the things that are necessary?
Maybe I can just step in here. So what we can do is Alistair's going to be bringing this report also to our Urban Watershed Working Group. So we have a working group where we sit with all the different watershed organizations, and we can kind of talk about some of these ideas that were brought forward today, and how this could kind of work into recommendations sort of going forward. And then we'll bring back some information to the committee once we have some recommendations on that.
Thank you, Ramona. As you know, I have been, talking about this for the last couple of years, and we have a lot of young children through no fault of their own in the city that don't have access to transportation. They can't go fishing in other parts of the city or other parts of the province. And I think this would be good for the kids in the downtown area. I mean, this would be a great recreational activity. So please, bring back whatever the prerequisites are. I mean, I'm a strong supporter of that. And the other thing is, Alistair, is that talking about Government's Pond. At one time, people really enjoyed Government's Pond. We used to have a bench there. People could have picnics there. It's not operational in terms of where people can actually enjoy it. And I'd like to go to that next level. I really would, and I think there's a great opportunity there, and I think we should exhaust every vehicle, every avenue possible to bring that pond up to its potential, so people can actually enjoy it.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's a great idea. Just in the interest of time, I might suggest that we keep moving, because we do have a closed session still to get through today.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair, just one quick item. on this.
Yeah.
It's very important that this whole study coincide with our watershed groups, because with the watershed groups, there's feedback coming back. Someone must have their mic on. There's a lot of feedback coming. Anyways, so it's very important that we work with Alistair and whoever else he's working with, and tie this in with the watershed groups that are associated with the city of Charlottetown, because we're looking at the larger picture, the bigger picture here, and I think Alistair's report will help us put it all together in a good package, a tight package. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Item B, monthly switch review. Aman.
Hamad's not able to join us, so I'll just go through this report.
Okay.
So this is just a monthly report that's provided to us from Pace Atlantic, who delivers our switch program, which is our zero interest financing program for energy efficiency upgrades. So as you'll know, we've seen the last time we brought a report was in December 2021. So since that time, we've seen a 78% increase in the number of completed projects. We've got 26% more participants signed up through with a participant agreement, and we've seen an increase of 70% of folks that are thinking about participating in the program. You can see here too the value of our signed participant agreements. So we're getting close to $1 million worth of value in projects, and then also the breakdown of what we're seeing in terms of what people are choosing to use the financing for. So 23% solar are picking solar, 42% are picking heat pumps, 26% are picking building envelope upgrades, and other is 9%. So right now we're looking at ramping up program marketing to keep interest in the program really high. We are also working on a few low-income homeowner programs, additional incentives that we can offer them. And yeah, we can bring back more information as we move along, but this is sort of our monthly update on the program.
Thank you, Ramona. I like the last part. Very keen on what you stated, the last part of your presentation about, I guess low income. It's a good way to describe it. I think the more incentives and the easier we can make it for people, regardless of what your economic status is, to be able to participate in a program like this, to my mind, will pay huge dividends for all of our residents. I'm very keen on that. So, if you can back at a later date and spell out what those incentives are and be specific, so we can get that message out to the community. I think it's, I think the program's worked out well. It's been very positive over the last year. There's a lot of enthusiasm, and I want to continue to build on that. I really do. And the more incentives and the more help we can help with homeowners, I think our community right across the board will truly embrace it.
Absolutely. We certainly want to use the program to promote social equity for those folks who may not be able to participate in these types of upgrades. It's definitely something that PACE programs are intended to do, is allow folks who wouldn't be able to do these upgrades otherwise to make those investments in their home and then have cost savings in their energy bills. So yes, we'll absolutely bring back some details on that for you.
Thank you very much. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to item C. Is that okay, Julie? Okay, funding application, PEI Alliance for Mental Well-Being. Katrina, please.
Yes, thank you so much. This report is just to update the committee on a funding application we're putting forward in partnership with Immigrant and Refugee Services Association, which, if you're not aware, is the new name for the Newcomers Association, who we've done many partnerships with, of course. So this funding opportunity is new this year through the PEI Alliance for Mental Wellbeing, and has a number of streams that support projects working to promote and create well-being within the community. So the project that we're putting forward is around community gardens. And the reason that we've chosen this for a couple of reasons. One being their strong potential to promote well-being in the community through the building of social networks, as well as potentially relieving stress of food insecurity for participants. So the city has been working for a while to promote community gardens in Charlottetown. It's a goal of our ICSP, and Jessica as well, you may remember, launched an application form for the community around a year ago or in the last 8 months, so that community groups could apply to start their own community garden. So the basis of this project is trying to support a group in doing that, to see if we can remove some barriers to the creation of a new community garden. So the project will involve the recruiting of a group of volunteers from within URSA's client base to act as a committee to start a new community garden. We'll hire a facilitator to guide that group through the process, really helping them to build skills and set them up to be able to manage and facilitate that garden into the future. But alongside the project, we'll also have somebody build a community garden framework for the city. So that will sort of have the side benefit of increasing the longevity of the effect of this project and allow us to undertake future partnerships like this. So it will really flesh out what the agreements between the city and the community need to look like on these projects, and also create resources that will guide the community in undertaking them. So that's basically what it looks like. We'll be putting the application forward in the next couple of days, and if it is accepted, there won't be any financial contributions required of the city. It will just be in-kind support from staff. And then along sort of in line with what we already offer for Des Brisets Community Garden, we'll of course be supplying the parkland for the project, and we'll be working with Parks and Recreation on that, as well as a water supply and a small annual stipend, but that would be encompassed in our normal annual budget.
Good.
Katrina,
Yep.
Thank you. This is a great report, great alliance with their new immigrant community, and you know what, it'll go beyond that too. The Des Brisets Park project, Councillor Tweel recalls back in early 2000 when this project was launched by members within that neighborhood. It was a very organic based group that started that Des Brisets project, and today they can't keep up with the the ask or request from gardens or just a plot in that park community, Des Brisets Park Community Garden. So I think there's a lot of potential for do this to make these steps broader throughout the community. And one place I'd like you to look at is that there's a garden that runs at the end that runs parallel to McCausland's Avenue out in East Royalty. It overlooks the arterial highway, and there's one gentleman that keeps that garden going, and I know it's provincial land, but he's making it work. He takes the food that he grows in that garden and shares it with his neighbors. So we have a lot of potential, and also potential to have wildflowers bloom throughout the city, so that it populates allows our bee population to grow and to flourish our own growing needs in the city. So look, hats off to getting this project off the ground, and if all we're providing is services in kind, well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. An excellent project. Is it possible, maybe for our next meeting or whenever you have the opportunity, to come back with a map with potential sites for a community garden throughout the city of Charlestown? And I wonder if the committee would even entertain, we have a lot of landowners in our city, particularly in the downtown, where you might be able to, I don't like using the term private-public partnership, but there might be an opportunity to work with private landowners that are not using their particular property, and maybe where, land is at a premium, particularly in the part of the city, there might be some opportunities there, Katrina, and I just bring that forward as a suggestion. and maybe we can, partner, and we can use some of the resources, and maybe even get the landowners to participate and have a coordinator, as you pointed out, and have that respective community become involved with, with growing their own vegetables, and being really connected to their respective communities. So I bring that forward. I think the sky's the limit here. I really do. The mayor talks about Des Brisset. I don't know if you're aware of how Des Brisset Garden first came into existence. We had water challenges in that particular neighborhood. 2 houses were sold. I supported the sale of those properties, and today we have, I would suggest, the envy of a lot of neighborhoods and communities in our city. We have some really committed volunteers. I mean, they're very, very committed, and I think that can be paralleled throughout other parts of the city. But I'd like to, if you could please look at those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I will just quickly note that Jessica has done some really great work to identify areas of the city where we might like to see community gardens developed, and we can circulate that information. We could look further at specific sites. We haven't necessarily identified exact sites for gardens. We do want the community to be part of that process and make sure that not only is the site suitable for a garden, but that it's also accessible and desirable to those who want to use it, as well as those in the surrounding area. But I think interesting suggestions, and certainly something that we can look at.
Thank you, Katrina. And as always, please keep up the excellent work. And anyone else like to bring forward some suggestions or recommendations to Katrina? No? Thank you. Okay. I guess the next item we're going to move to is, I guess it would be D on your scorecard, single-use plastics. Jessica.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see people's faces. Don't get out much anymore, so it's always good to see people. So I know that we're a little bit tight for time. There's a lot to cover in this meeting. Just wanted to clarify what we were hoping this discussion, like in terms of stuff is it stuff that we've already done, or stuff that we're kind of looking at for later this year that you're kind of hoping to focus on, or I can just go over everything, whatever you prefer.
Well, like the mayor asked for this item, I know we did a release to the media back, I believe, before Christmas, with our policy on plastics and what we're looking to accomplish, working with our constituents. I thought it was very proactive, but nonetheless, Philip, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica, I was called upon by Radio Canada for an interview, and we mixed up the themes. There was one on le gaspillage alimentaire, food waste, and then there was this le plastique recyclable. So there was a bit of confusion. So I phoned Denny Duchesne, and he said, well, I was to do an interview on single plastic use. And to tell you the truth, I recall the effort that was put into it before COVID-19 hit. You had kiosk out at the Charlestown Mall. You had kiosk here in front of City Hall, really promoting this whole single-use plastic issue. And the more documentaries I watch on this global problem, it's not just a local issue, it's a global problem, is that people are continuing to ask, where does the plastic go? So all this recycling we're doing, after it goes, it's processed through IWMC, I'd like to, look down the road. Where is it going? Is it ending up somewhere else other than being recycled? These are just questions that I'm developing from paying more and more attention to this issue and its impact, not just on our land, but on our oceans and on our rivers and on our streams. So that's why I wanted it on the agenda. And I think that, as we slowly get out of the COVID-19 pandemic, that we go back full force into promoting this single-use plastic. I can tell you, as a a subscriber to the Guardian newspaper. I don't like it when I receive the paper in a plastic bag that I know is single use. So these are little things we can all do. But again, there's that whole issue of the compost, where it's going. But on this issue, it's the single use. Or, I'd like to follow, not follow the money, follow the plastic. So thank you, Ramona, for providing this background that I know that Jessica put together. And I just want to make sure that we get back on track when we slowly we get out of this COVID-19 pandemic and start promoting ending single-use plastic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that particular item? Okay, B, I asked Ramona to put this on the agenda, Upper Prince Street, the Crow issue. Ramona, I sent you some emails this morning from, one resident, two residents, one in particular, a lifelong resident. You saw the pictures, pretty decimating to, people can't even walk outside their doors. I mean, the defecation of these crows, it's just, it's unbearable. It's overwhelming. It's frightening. It's, I don't know if I want to use the word dangerous. It's certainly not healthy. And in the cemetery, I grew up across from that cemetery. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, there's got to be millions of them, not thousands, but millions, and that's not overstating that. So, reason why I put it on here, and the residents in the Upper Prince Street area are looking for us to come up with a bit of a solution, a game plan to discourage the crows from congregating, if you will, in this particular community. There's a reason why they're there. Obviously, someone must have deployed a whaler somewhere else in the city, and they're congregating in the heart of the city. This happened a number of years ago when it was when I think Governor General's or Lieutenant Governor's residents, someone or some residents, there was a program that the city offered residents, and they used the whalers, and the next thing you know, they were all pushed up into the Spring Park, Queen Street, Upper Prince Street, Gerald Street, all in through that area, and it was horrible. It was just horrible as to the mess these crows are making. So I wanted on the agenda. I indicated to the residents that I would bring it forward, and I'd like to come up with a game plan.
Certainly. So I'd like for full disclosure, I am also a resident of Upper Prince Street, so just kind of want to make that point. I know this is something that we deal with probably every year around this time. Jessica's been part of that discussion in the past, and Beth, her predecessor, was part of that many times. So we've talked about lots of different solutions over the years, none of which are permanent solutions, more about kind of moving the crows around and also recognizing that this is the time of the year that they really do prefer to be in the city center. I will let Jessica speak if there's kind of a couple items that we could sort of help homeowners with, tips and other things to sort of reduce the interest of the crows of being on their property. But if we were to do, anyway, Jessica, do you want to make a couple comments?
Sure, I can jump in. So like Ramona said, this is an ongoing issue that we kind of circle around every year, and it's obviously not something that has an easy solution. So I think we could talk at length and take up the whole meeting to talk about this. So I'm not sure how much detail we want to get into, but I have lots of questions. Like, I don't know the full extent of how many houses, how many birds, whether there's any city property involved in that, whether the city gets involved in pest management on private property. I don't know if these homeowners have reached out to pest companies and tried things already, or if they've not tried anything at all. There's a long list of things people can try to keep birds away from their properties, things from different objects, different sounds, turning lights out. Crows love areas that are lit up at night because they don't see well at night and they can't see their predators, so they really love cities for that reason. So there's a long list of tips. I have an ongoing email that I circulate to residents with these different tips. Whether they try them, I don't know. Things I could offer to do is get that tip sheet ready so people can circulate it. I could meet with the province as they have wildlife management experts. I dabble in this, but wildlife management is not my main focus. If there's bird feces on the sidewalks and that's a concern, I could work with Public Works on getting it cleaned up. There's a lot of different avenues we could explore.
Well, thank you for that, Jessica. If you look at, I don't think she'll mind me saying, if you look at Marilyn Kane's property, I mean, that's just horrible. It's just horrible. The mess that the crows have left on her property. I mean, they can't even go outside. That's what it's gotten to. They can't, it's just horrible. And somewhere along the line, I think we as a municipality, as a city government, we need to take some type of action and be proactive and to help move the birds along. I mean, I'm not saying we should blow them out of the sky, but we need to come up with some kind of a methodology to kind of encourage them to move them along. It's not fair to the people living in this community that they have to be inundated with all these crows. I mean, their cars, their porches, their homes. I mean, it's horrible. It's just they're pleading with us to do something.
Yeah, no, I see the pictures and I know it must be frustrating.
Well, it's horrible. So, if we can reach out to, I like the idea of reaching out to, Fish and Wildlife and to see what we can do, whether it's, a partnership with that particular department. I just think we need to do something to move them along. I mean, in the cemetery, I mean, I wasn't joking when I said last night at the council meeting, it's like the reenactment of an Alfred Hitchcock movie. That's not an exaggeration. I mean, it'd be great if somebody wants to do a film, in the Pioneer Cemetery. I mean, great backdrop, but we've got to do something. We really do, Mr. Mayor.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Mr. Chair, I was chair of Parks and Recreation back in 2000, 2002, 2003, and in 2004 we brought in a specialist from Burlington, Ontario, to look how to move the crows from Victoria Park. So this issue's been going on for 170 years. So I know it's been an issue in our neighborhood up by Spring Park, but it's a city issue. It's ideal that they have a roosting area, i.e. the Victoria Park parkland, but it's a perennial issue. You may
frozen in time.
Oh, you should turn on the lights to keep the skunk away, on your lights to keep the skunks away.
Philip, it's not working.
But the lights. Oh, can you hear me? Yep. Hold on. You guys, can you hear me?
You're dysfunctional.
Just one second. Can you see now?
That's an understatement, by the way, Councillor
Get
Terrell.
frozen. Spencer. Spencer. Spencer.
Well, anyway, the mayor's having some difficulties
Okay.
logging in.
Au revoir.
Okay, see you later. So, Jessica, can I please ask you to contact Fish and Wildlife to see what methodology can be employed to move the crows along? Like I said, I'm not looking to blow them out of the sky. All I want to do is just move them along and get them away from some of the homes in the Upper Prince Street area. It's devastating for them. And Marilyn Mrs. Kane phoned me Saturday morning. We had a lengthy discussion. I asked her to send me the emails, the pictures. She did. They can't, her and her husband can't continue to live like this. They can't.
And maybe, I was just going to say, Jessica, you had indicated that there is some information or education for homeowners that they might be able to try. So whether we work with comms or someone to get some of that out too, to, you know, it's obviously problematic more than just on Upper Prince Street. So what can we do to educate and inform, and then, you know, proceed with whatever else requests? But that might be a good start.
I think it's a good start, Julie, but we've got to do something as a municipality as well. So please, Jessica, if you could take that and look into it. And
yes, I can definitely look into it. The
can
comment I
remotely-
will make is I know we looked into relocating crows before.
Yeah.
And what happened with that is it just moved the problem to another neighborhood. So it's, you know, really difficult to solve the problem across the board, but I'm happy to meet with companies to see what services they provide, meet with the province, and come up with some communication tools that might help residents.
And Ramona, just one sec, Your Worship, and Ramona, the two emails that I sent you, could you please touch base with the constituents and let them know that we're exploring some opportunities and open up the lines of communications with them, please?
Yes. Yep. And we could send out those tips to them as well while we're waiting to look at other options.
Thank you, Ramona. Mr. Mayor, you wanted to jump in?
Mr. Chair, I've been unfrozen. I'm ready to.
What?
I've been unfrozen.
Well, Greg Rivera said it was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, well, Councillor Rivera does have different opinions than others, and I appreciate that. But Ramona, actually Jessica, again, going back to 2000.
Usually
2000,
right.
2001, 2000, 2003. We brought a specialist in from Burlington, Ontario, to look at finding another roosting area for them. It's a huge issue. It's been going on for 170 years, and as I said, we've been told by Fish and Wildlife that if you want to keep skunks away from your house, turn on the lights. And now what you're saying, to keep the crows away, turn off the lights. So it's quite an issue that we're facing here. But look, good luck. It's a big. I'm glad that we're discussing it again. But finding someone or some company or some expert in the field to address this issue, it's a huge challenge, and I know it's hard in the neighborhoods. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just before we move to closed door session, Jessica, what's the bird? There's a bird there that kind of, I guess, scares the crows. It's not the owl. There's another bird. What is it, the falcon?
Yeah.
The falcon. Maybe we can bring in about 6 falcons, and that'll drive them away. I don't know, but I mean, like
Maybe temporarily.
What?
Maybe temporarily it would.
Temporarily. Okay.
Bring in some eagles and hogs.
Right. Thank you, Jessica and Ramona. I look forward to coming back with a strategy, and please keep the lines of communications open with the residents in Upper Prince Street. Motion to move into a closed session as per section 119(1)(e) of the Municipal Government Act of Prince Edward Island. Moved. Second.
Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I know with some disappointment I have to leave this meeting. I wish you good luck in your closed session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and we'll have a lot of progress when you leave. Thank you. So, Spencer, can you